of the afternoon before dancing and drinking, alcoholic or not, your choice. And we are really grateful and happy to have Brigadier Caroline Woodbridge-Lewin back in her new role, which she's going to tell us about secondly. And yes, enjoy cyber and AI. We've been talking about AI all week, so it'll be really interesting to see where this goes today. Thank you, Caroline.
Yes, thanks very much. I hope everybody can hear me. Thank you, Tess, and the team, the DSET team, for inviting me back to chair a panel. I'm really excited because we've got some high quality panelists today who are going to talk a little bit about their challenges around AI and cyber. Tess mentioned that this is actually my third year now supporting the DSET team, once as a speaker, last year as a chair, and again this year. I have moved slightly away from the sort of core cyber work that I was doing last year, which is where I was running the Defence Cyber Academy, which was an incredible privilege, to now running the Defence College of Technical Training. And my goodness, we have conversations about AI every day. And one of the things that we do to enable training, the technical training, which is essentially all the phase 2 and phase 3 engineering courses that supports the 3 services, is that we run our own digital network. And that at a very parochial local level generates me cyber challenges equally every day. And I continue to be responsible for delivering the services cyber experts through the Blandford College, the Defence School of CIS, which sits in Blandford and Cosford. And so, you know, I'm living every day trying to build the skills, and I know that is a real challenge across all of the nations supporting the NATO countries, but everywhere worldwide. There is a shortage of cyber skilled people. And interestingly, I think there's some unusual myths around the challenges of AI in delivery, but the people we need to be really good at it. So I know we have an exciting panel. I'm going to shut up and let them get on with telling you what they've been up to. So it gives me great pleasure to start the day with Bharat Patel, who's chair of the NATO Modelling and Simulation Group. We go back a little bit as well. I used to look after the Defence Simulation Centre at the Defence Academy. It's great to see you again, and the floor is yours. So over to you, Bharat.
Thank you very much, Caroline. Nice to see you again as well. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak at DSET again, and this time a slightly different subject. Last year I spoke about what NMSG was about. This year I'm going to speak about what the NATO modelling simulation challenges are with respect to AI and cyber, in particular looking at AI first and then moving on to cyber. The context I've done is really looking at M&S and its application rather than do the whole kind of NATO AI kind of ecosystem. I don't know. Oh, sorry. Next. Okay. Now, just to remind people, NATO Modelling and Simulation Group has something like 24 nations collaborating to kind of deliver modelling and simulation and its application. We focus on 3 major areas. One is obviously training. Second is really looking at how modelling and simulation will support the operations, particularly mission level operations. And thirdly, how we use modelling and simulation in synthetic environments in battle labs. So those are kind of 3 key drivers that we use to drive both the group as well as the collaboration. Okay. So in 2021, NATO felt that they need an AI strategy, so they developed an AI strategy. The motivation really is that AI is becoming now very important, very dangerous as well as, and changing the whole kind of global defense environment and the security environment. It is also an opportunity for us to use for good, but there's also the downside. It escalates the bad as well, use of AI as well. So the speed of threats become increased, and they also become very autonomous, the threats. Okay, and the aim of the strategy really is to kind of govern ourselves to be kind of the good people. Okay, really making sure that we use AI responsibly. to also look at accelerating the technology as well as adapting the technology. Sorry, I've just lost my notes. Okay. So, like I said, we have to use that responsible use. And really, we're trying to adopt AI quite quickly, because if you're going to meet the adversarial use of AI, you've got to also adapt it quickly. And particularly in applying AI. AI is a technology, right? It doesn't by itself does much. So things in NATO, we particularly look at AI for autonomous systems, autonomous decision making, and so on. So we've got to kind of accelerate the adaptation of AI into those kind of areas. We also need to protect our own kind of development of AI technologies, as well as the ability to innovate more quickly what we do with the AI. We also got to kind of identify and safeguard and detect and counter all AI threats. And that's not easy, because you'll see the economy, the ecosystem of AI is complex and it's large. And they are now exploding as well. We've also developed in NATO principles of responsible use of AI in defense. And as you can see, there are kind of quite a few things that kind of constrain us, whereas our adversaries won't be constrained by these. Okay, for instance, the law, the legal side, the legal aspects. Okay, we've also got a posture, which is defense posture. We're not going to use cyber to do bad things or look at cyber in the attack kind of mode. We're trying to look at the defensive posture. The other main thing is we're trying to build trust through what they call explainable AI or accountable AI. So those are kind of three things that I think I drew out of those principles of responsible use. AI has been around, and we have used AI in MNS. You probably, many of us who go that far back will look at that chart, and yes, we had expert systems in the kind of the 1980s. Okay, we had autonomous agents. I was proponent of the first command agents for computer-generated forces in 1996. But more increasingly, they come into play into our use of operational research for decision support. We've been looking at stochastic Bayesian belief networks for many years and developing those and how we feed them through data, largely modeling simulation data or synthetic data. In kind of the 2000 to 2010, kind of smart databases and websites and web services became kind of introduced, and obviously a lot of kind of networks use AI protecting your networks as well. One area that we also looked at AI kind of techniques in human behavior representations, things like intelligent agents and belief, desire, and intent models that kind of mimic a lot of some of the AI technologies that we all talk about nowadays. In 2010 to 2020, things became more important in terms of new developments by the commercial sector, the non-defense sector. Machine learning became quite norm. Computer vision became quite norm, and those get embedded into many of the things that we do use every day, and people don't realize that. Search engines are very large users of AI techniques. And recently, it's just mushroomed quite a lot, okay, and accelerated the development. And access has also become very easy. And so, you may think we in the West are using AI quite smartly and accelerating, but our adversaries are doing it even as fast as we are, if not more, because they don't have constraints that I've just put forward the responsible use of AI. So I think it is mushrooming. It is not really being controlled globally. And so it is a dangerous area that is, if not managed correctly, we could face quite a lot of adversarial threats. So what happens in the next decade? So we did a study, the NATO STO, Science and Technology Organization, and it's kind of projecting that in the next 2 years, there'll be increased data availability to train and improve AI. Okay, so generating data that would be useful for AIs to train and improve the actual AI algorithms. Also, I think in the modeling simulation world, we will see the move from traditional physics-based modeling to AI modeling. What I mean by is that it'll move from traditional physics-based algorithms to learning algorithms. So it'll have a base of physics-based, then it'll start sucking data from wherever it can, and they start to develop that model and recreate that model or improve that model. And that will become known as AI modeling. Between 2 to 5 years from now, AI will drive decision support. It's like us. Who's driving when we follow the GPS? Is it you or is the GPS driving you? What will be also important is that we will need to collaborate in formulating standards and sharing AI data, and also making sure that we take a networking approach to AI. In the next 5 to 10 years, there'll be increased understanding, which leads to greater trust between humans and AI. AI will also be used largely to better do situation awareness, particularly in operations. It'll also have less human supervision. A lot of people are afraid that AI must be controlled with a human in the loop type of element, but more and more we will be releasing that. Okay, and in greater than 10 years, I believe the level of trust will allow autonomous action, something that we still are grappling with in terms of ethics. Okay, and it'll be across many domains and many types of actions. Okay, and we'll be learning to let go. That's something that humans are not prepared to do yet. So what are the AI challenges in modeling and simulation? There are many, and I'm just going to highlight some of the challenges being addressed, and a couple of them are really quite important. Artificial intelligence in military training and education. How can we exploit AI in training our staff, as well as being trained to deal with AI? Okay, as well as countering AI threats and autonomous threats that AI supports. Some of the future challenges in modeling and simulation, we're looking at AI data-driven behavior modeling, okay, AI advanced data processing, AI model representation. I talked about that a minute ago. You know, we are moving from physics-based to AI modeling. And then, you know, creating content for modeling simulation and its applications, and also delivering AI, some of the training. We might get kind of avatars doing, you know, after action review, for instance. And then the exploitation of digital twins in modeling and simulation. Digital twins will inherently have AI technologies within it to kind of sustain those behaviors and simulations. Right, moving on to cyber. Okay. Now, one of the things that I think there's a kind of overall cyber challenges. Cyber threats are very complex. They're destructive and coercive. How do we deal with that? How do we represent those? They're also contested now 24/7, you know, all day. And can be from small cyber attacks to very kind of catastrophic cyber attacks. You only hear really about the catastrophic ones, not the minor ones. The alliance is continuously strengthening its kind of detect, prevent, and counter cyber attacks. That's within its kind of collaboration. So NATO cyber is a defense posture. Cyber is really part of NATO's core task of deterrence and defense. We are working together to counter cyber attacks. NATO formalized its kind of a cyber concept as the kind of fourth domain in 2016, i.e., alongside air, land, and maritime, the cyber domain was established in 2016. Sorry. More recently, last year, NATO launched its kind of NATO virtual cyber incident support capability to help nations counter cyber attacks. I can't see the screen. Sorry, have I gone too far? Okay, cyber MS challenges, that's fine. Yeah, as part of kind of NATO's collective defense tasking, NATO is integrating cyber defense into the entire range of alliance exercises. So in NMSG, we launched a series of technical activities in 2016 to address that shortfall in representing cyber in campaign and mission level exercises and simulations. The approach we took is rather than kind of model everything that kind of interacts in the cyber domain, is to look at cyber effects. What cyber effects means is that, are they going to be kind of denying you services, denial of service, okay? Deception, like fake news. So those is what I mean by that cyber effects, rather than actually programming networks or cyber ranges. And looking at that mission and campaign level simulations for exercises and decision support. And on the right-hand side, you'll see a number of activities that we've started and completed to enable us to introduce cyber effects into campaign and mission level simulations. So in summary, cyber defense and managing and securing defense information and data, commercial technologies, system networks is very much a use case of AI. We will not be able to protect our information, our cyber domain, without the use of AI, because it needs to be 24/7 and needs to be fast responsive. Thank you very much.
Bharat, thank you. I certainly don't underestimate your role to corral the NATO community with things such as standards, agreements on ethical approaches. One would hope we're all united in that respect. But clearly, I recognise the role the adversary has here in accelerating, and you talk about that and the need to, and you use the word mushrooming, but this idea of scale and volume, trying to get our arms around that. I don't underestimate those challenges. And it's not lost on me that the screen went blank as you're talking about cyber. So you never know who's out there, right? Bharat, thank you very much. We look forward to having you some questions later. If I might now just move directly on to inviting Lieutenant Colonel Miguel Marazuela, who's one of the key staff officers on the synthetic training project within the European Air Group. Miguel, lovely to have you here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. On behalf of the Colonel Defossy, who is our Deputy Director at the EAG, thank you very much for having us here, providing you with our brief and what we do, basically. Because I presume that almost nobody knows what the European Air Group is, and probably you're thinking about a European agency or something like that. And the truth is that it's not related to it, as you can see. So the first time that I received the mail stating that I could be a briefer in here, I didn't know what to say. So I look on the AI and I ask Copilot, how can the European Air Group support the DSET 2024? And basically, that's the response that I received the first day. I keep asking the same questions many days later, and the response was changing during the time. Who brought me new questions over it. But first is need to present what the European Air Group is. Basically, during the Gulf War and also the Yugoslavia crisis, under the UN mandate, France and Great Britain tried to work together coherently, and guess what? At tactical level, there was a mismatch on procedures, on techniques, on how to do things. So basically, the air bosses from France and the UK decided to create a group just for interoperability purposes. So they asked the prime ministers to sign up an agreement stating how valuable would be to act together with a small group. So we got that signature in 1995, and guess what? 1 year later, we have Italy on board stating that they wanted to be in the European Air Group. So the Minister of Defense of each nation signed an amendment to that. And guess what? The following year, Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, and Spain joined the European Air Group, which is basically an organization that it's lasting so far 25 years with 7 nations, and that has a fighter power of 777 jet aircrafts, which is quite a big deal. But it's good to know where we are located. So you probably know High Wycombe, the Royal Air Force headquarters. We are right there. We have a building. And basically, our boss is the air boss this year of the German Air Force. And it's a post that is rotating every 2 years among the air bosses from the 7 nations. As a permanent staff, we have a deputy director, which is a 2-star general. This year, it's from France. It's General Xavier Fossé. And the chief of staff, which is a colonel, and it's in this case is a Spaniard one. So I already talked about the who and when, the where and how, but it's worth noting what we do and why we do it. And basically, as you probably guess, we are an independent organization. We have nothing to do with NATO. We don't have anything to do with the European Union. We are just a group of the 7 nations. The air bosses meet together once a year, and they address us on what interoperability gaps are needed to find out. Our mission is to improve that operational capability so the air forces can act and they can work coherently on the missions. And our vision is basically that, to operate together, doing things as they are supposed to be done. But we have a lot of partners and associate nations. We worked close to the NATO ST. We work with European Union. We work with the EDA, JAPCC, who is the think tank for the air forces. You name it, and probably we are working with them. That means that we are not a closed organization. We are open to basically to work with many nations. And talking about interoperability, well, that's the definition that NATO has in the NATO terms. That is the ability for allies to act together coherently, effectively, and efficiently to achieve tactical, operational, and strategic objectives. We move at tactical level. Keep that in mind. We are not a think tank organization. We just try to find the gaps at tactical level and come with a solution. And those are our products, basically. We move basically in the human and procedure domain, if you will. We are not technical because we don't have anything. We only own what the nations have. But we can provide them exercises, and we are doing that in our Vulcan X series exercise, in which the cyber guys, the cyber air forces guys, are getting together just to define what the interoperability gaps may have with communications, for instance. We are good at the human with the training and exercises, and also with the procedure, having the best practices, manuals, SOPs, basically all that. And we have role groups, which basically work on the 4 different domains: force protection, CIS, cyber, operations, and logistics. They're all related in a certain way, but we are keeping up on having those gaps closed so the nations can act much better. The achievements that we have so far, probably you've known one of those, is that the European Air Transport Command was born in the European Air Group. The Eurofighter Typhoon interoperability project, in which 2 Eurofighters can work from Germany or the UK, can basically have an engagement and go back to their own bases without writing anything, just with a phone call, comes from the EAG. The European Personal Recovery Center in Poggio Ronatico is also coming from the EAG. And we are supporting synthetic training at NATO DST. We are part of the Tiger Team 2 and 4 and 6, just providing whatever they need. Also, we are developing the training levels for tactical data link, which, by the way, they are not harmonized across NATO. For such, now that you know what the European Air Group is doing, what is AI doing on education and training related to interoperability? And the answer to the question is, right now, we don't have gaps because the nations didn't say anything yet. We are on the analysis phase, and therefore, we are trying to grab as many information as we can just to be ready for the moment that one of the nations raise their hand and say, we think we have this gap, help us, we'll be there. It being said that AI can be used to create great teachers and irreplaceable learning experience. Those are the facts that we find out. The application landscape is huge right now for students. And this is keeping in mind that we are talking under education and training. If you check at Google how many visits does any of those tools have in total, the amount is so incredible, like it's impossible to manage. So that means that the AI is here, it's going to stay, and it's going to produce more and more. There is no way to stop that. So the sooner we get into that, the better it will be for us. But we need to basically get the best of it. Since the starters in 1943, when it was defined the first approach on AI, till the 2020 with ChatGPT 3 or the latest ChatGPT 4.0, I mean, it's been spinning and spinning incredibly. So under an education and training perspective, if we want to check what the questions, requirements, and risks are, we should keep those in mind. And remember, we are all focusing not only on the student, but also on the teacher, because that's basically the toughest gap that we may find. Is a teacher that is 5, 6, 7 years older than a guy that is 5, 7 years younger, that even though they are kind of the same age, they don't talk the same way. And that's quite a challenge. The teacher has to be aware of the risk as confabulation, the bias, the instructional, and privacy, and also address the student on that. But also, what is the purpose of the AI for the student? Do we want to use it as a tool? That's okay. But as a tool can be used in many ways. This is an example from Garrick and Garrick. There are guys writing reports on how AI is intervening on the education that I like most. It's in your plan or competencies to acquire the skills, you have to be an AI that acts as a mentor, a different one working as a tutor, another one as a coach, either as a teammate, a student, or yes, as a simulator. And all of those should be implicit when achieving the skills. I like that picture of the Vitruvian Man because it represents basically the proportions and how AI should be included into the competencies and the skills for a student. Not only on the physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental, that represents a different kind of AI that should be included in your programs. So for that, it's going to be quite challenging to graph all the data. We need a lot of data. This is an example coming from the Spanish Force, in which they are trying to graph as many data as they can, just to see how a fighter guy should act. On the left side, you will see that there is a student with a kind of a helmet with 32 channels, just analyzing all the impulses coming from the brain when doing an mission. On the right side, there is an AI, quite low quality AI, just having the presence on indicating the student how to react, measuring the how the eyes move, how the heartbeat it's increasing. And on the center, you will see that this is the upset prevention training and recovery training that they do over there, in which the AI is grabbing all the data, just putting the person in unusual positions to recover the aircraft. Why? Just because we want to know how will a guy act during an emergency. And this is only the beginning. We need industry, we need academia. We are working with them, actually, with academia a lot, and we need industry to support that. There is a program in Spain called BACSI, in which all industry are more than welcome to develop those ideas that we have. As a conclusion, I want to tell you that, in a nutshell, what EAG is. Basically, we are not a think tank. We do not publish magazines. We are enablers. Our main customers are the 7 nations air forces, and we are trying to develop the gaps in interoperability that we find. You can find us on social media in case you want to contact us. And please, for any questions, here is my address. Thank you very much.
Miguel, thank you ever so much for that. I was really struck by the fact that so many people probably don't understand who you are and what you do, and it's really important to be able to get that across to this wider community. Particularly given your location operating out of High Wycombe as well, and I sense that you're at the base of the hills of AI in some respects inside the European Air Group, but you can see, and as a trainer of engineers that support aircraft, how in the future human-machine teaming is going to be essential, and there may even be a point where autonomy becomes a workforce savings measure in itself. So. I think it's an exciting time, but you're right, in terms of bringing all of those communities together, those that are learning and being able to harness that feels really important. Last but not least, it gives me great pleasure to invite Tim Cooch up to the stage. So Tim, welcome, who's joining us from Raytheon, who's going to come and give an industry perspective on the challenges of AI and cyber. So Tim, lovely to have you. Thank you. And the floor is yours.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for attending this afternoon, and thanks to DSET for inviting me to speak today. I do think I honed the record for the longest job title of anybody I've seen today, down to 4 lines. That's quite impressive, and think I need to re-scrub that when I get back to the office tomorrow. So I'm here to talk more about the AI in industry and what Raytheon are doing as we speak, and what partners we're talking about, what work we're doing with our partners at the moment. So where are we developing our technology? So data handling and automation, we deal in course design with large amounts of data. So we're looking to use AI to better generate our courseware materials and anything we develop during the training analysis and course design processes. But also bearing in mind that we have a large number of policy documents, first and foremost, the Defence Systems Approach to Training, that we need to make sure that we adhere to. So behavioural analytics as well. looking at how people and process interact with each other. Another large area that we're thinking about going into is how do we design synthetic training scenarios where we're dealing with a platform or a device that's been synthesized with a large amount of processes we need to follow and train people on. So how can we use AI to develop those more easily so we can get what we need for the trainee? The Internet of Things, Edge and Tiny ML. With a lot of the presentations here over the last few days, we've been talking about large machines, large computing. In the keynote this morning, the Cave and the sort of previous generations, how huge they were. We're looking at putting AI, machine learning, onto smaller devices. So imagine a trainee who is going through fixed mastery variable time training, another key thing that we've had over the last couple of days, how they could train themselves in the workplace on a new process or procedure or device using AI and looking into the documentation and setting up quizzes and things like that. And language processing. You remember when we started using Word and things like that, and that small paperclip, the annoying paperclip we couldn't turn off, kept giving you little bits of advice and information. We're looking at the next generation of that, hopefully not quite as annoying, but something that can help those asynchronous students working from home or wherever or on deployment, and being able to be helped by a little helper there, some AI generated tutor. Realize it. And then finally, operational analysis. We've got a new suite called the Raytheon Campaign Analysis and Demonstration Environment, ARCADE. Nice acronym, which is a new suite that enables commanders to take various information fields in a complex battlefield. The tool is supported by a large number of analysts who can run through multiple combinations and solutions to give those commanders options so they can quickly make decisions. That's currently being used in the US, but we are looking to move that over to the UK. But like with anything, and another common theme that we've been seeing over the last couple of days is it's all about the data. So we're making sure we're using real world data as quickly as possible, but meaningful data to make sure those commanders get what they need. So more to my area of expertise, the courseware and media world, the back end of training, as it were. So AI is a huge growth area for us in this space, where once upon a time where you would have dozens of training designers, course designers, training analysts, the schoolies in the background doing the stuff. Defence does not have that capability so much now with the reduction in those branches and trades. So the use of AI will remove the grunt work of where I would tell my guys, right, take that document set, look through all those dozens of processes, policy, SOPs, etc., to find the information you need for that training objective. Now, with using AI, we can get the machine to find that information for my guys, and that frees up the talent that we have to create those innovative training solutions that our customers want and trainees demand. This new generation of learners we've been talking about, they're getting what they need. And so my guys are using their experience and skills where we need them. Also, an area for AI is that delivery mechanism. Again, fixed mastery variable time. I love it. It's been coming around for years and years and years. If we just get the people machine that supports the training machine to support that, then I think the trainers would get their way. But that's just my opinion on that one. But if we could set up AI to give a bespoke training pathway for the trainee that takes into account their prior learning experience and also what they need to do there in their job finally, then that would make a training system more efficient, get those guys into the training into when they need and get to them frontline faster. And finally, probably even less glamorous than course design is actually course validation. How do we know that trainee is not guessing? And the AI should be able to help us with that, with the seeing how the person answers that question, what they've been doing, what patterns they are. Do they actually know the subject? Are they, like I say, are they guessing? So then when they go into the classroom, the instructor will know that guy's confident, that guy isn't, and it can help us deliver. But then the next level of evaluation is that training fit for purpose? If people are failing it, why are they failing it? We can look over multiple deliveries of courseware just to make sure that we can get those trends and make better training. But what about the training problems that don't fit in a nice, even box that we've been talking about? So this is where our ART tool comes into it. It's a fully configurable system that is integrated with the human element. So we have our training advisors will go out, meet with the person who's got a problem, assess what their information sources are, bring those information sources into our engine, and then we can build multiple solutions going through there and changing different elements to find which change elements create the best outcomes. From there, we can then come up with a plan to work with the customer to deliver those problems in the transformation stage. And then finally, once that's been running for a certain amount of time, again, then evaluate the solution, see if we can improve on it. And therefore, that's why it's a cyclical process. So really, this should be discussion points from industry, I suppose, more than for industry, because it affects us, but it's also those points we want to discuss with the military in particular. So a lot of AI, when we speak to SMEs and we speak to colleagues and partners, a lot of it is software as a system. Now, depending on what project you're working on, classification, the security guys will start recoiling in horror when you start saying software as a service, because they start thinking about all the implications, et cetera, et cetera. So we are working with SMEs and partners to look at how we can use on-prem AI solutions to make sure we're not, or make sure we are keeping to the security requirements of our products. Mod AI, been mentioned a couple of times in briefs this week, but we would welcome more dialogue with Mod AI to see how we can work with the guys and evolve what we're doing to reduce the inertia between the development. This, as we can see, this huge amount, as Miguel has just been talking about, is things have just gone through so quickly. We need to be able to keep up with that to make sure that the MOD are getting the best that they could possibly get from us. And then the final point here is there is a restriction on AI being used by people in uniform. Yes, there are some partnership deals, as we've heard this morning in the keynote, and very important pieces of work, and we are looking to do that as well. But there is restriction of the guys on the front line using that AI, so that tiny ML solutions with the tablets at the moment are very difficult for us to deliver to get that those advantages into the trainee. So the last slide before you can go and have a beer or whatever we're going to do is talking about what we said last year. A bit of a review of one of my colleagues when they presented last year. We were talking about how we were going to, as a large defence prime, how we were going to engage with SMEs to get their experience and their innovation to help us use AI and machine learning more. So that's exactly what we've done over the last 12 months. We have meeting with these SMEs to look at how we can use them in the course design, how we can use them in training delivery, but also how we can generate ideas between our teams and their teams is how we can bring on those projects and deliver them to not just our customers, but most importantly to the trainee finally at that end point to make sure they get the training they need to get to the front line faster. Thank you. Thanks. That's me. Thank you.
Tim, thank you very much. So much in there. It's like you've been listening to the conversations I've been having in the corridors of my headquarters around things like AI for efficiency or speed or indeed personalization. So I'm sure there's some really great questions to come. So I'd love to invite all of our speakers to come and join me up on the panel. And then we will dive into some questions. Abby says that she's going to cover out the online questions. So we'll throw a few of those into the mix as well. And I think there is a roving microphone so we can pick up those who have a question to ask. So over to the floor. Anyone want to start off the questions? Over on the far side. So Abby, down the end here, we've got a question. Gives everyone a chance to take a breath as Abby makes her way down. And we are very conscious that obviously we are between you all and the end of the day, but we'd love some questions. The panel have done a great job of being able to throw some interesting things to think about. So first one.
Thank you. Hi, John Windover from Ocean Software. Miguel, nice to see you again. We met at the MFT conference. It's actually a question for you, sir. When you talk about interoperability and collaboration between nations operating similar platform types like Typhoon, when you go on exercise, TTPs are really key. Have you considered the use of AI in creating some sort of collaborative approach to collective TTPs in your training with across multiple nations? I know it's ongoing on paper. How have you managed to migrate this into the digital world with AI, if at all? Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much for your question. Quite interesting one. When dealing with weapon systems, you know that the classification level is always an issue to share the full spectrum of the information. Having said that, at this stage, no nation has declared their interest yet. I presume that it's going to come anytime soon, but right now we don't have anything to say about that, just because no nation it's willing to do that. But eventually it will happen for sure.
Thanks, Miguel. I mean, just to add, as in that discovery phase, of course, the use of AI to assess the existing TTPs might be a really interesting thing to take all of those TTPs, those volumes that kind of exist in all of those countries, maybe in different languages as well, and then using the tooling to be able to do the analysis, the discovery phase, about where you've got duplication, where it says the same thing, where it doesn't say the same thing. You can see how that sort of technology could apply in that respect as well. So even in your discovery phase, I sense there's probably a use. Bharat.
Yeah.
You're on.
You're on. I can't see the red light.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things about AI is that we can also look at the other way. Can AI develop new and novel tactics that a human is not unable to think of? So trying to force the AI to look at the sensing it does, look at the kind of advantage by playing a competitive AI against each other to see whether it comes with novel tactics. And we've done some of this work, unfortunately slightly classified, but looking at kind of operational tactics, maneuvering, say, submarine against a threat. So we've done that sort of stuff using AI to look at novel way of doing the business, of avoiding threats.
Tim, do you want to add anything?
Yes, I suppose what I would say, use of AI in the same way as anything linked to training, what is the requirement? So you always have to make sure that the requirement was said. So hopefully the 7 nations, when they get together and give you some indication, it is bound to a requirement, so you can test to make sure that it does actually meet your need, and it's not the latest shiny thing that people are pressured into using. So I suppose that's what I would always say.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. A really well made point. Next question. Abby, have you got any that are online? Okay, anyone else in the room? Yes, please, Rusty.
It's a question for Bharat, really, and perhaps yourself, Caroline, if you can comment. What scares you about AI from a defence perspective, please?
Right, so I'm going to let Bharat take that one first, because I suspect NATO collectively has been thinking about some of these, and I know you brought up some of the comments around ethics.
I think, yeah, there are two things. I think what scares me most is our adversaries' use of AI and the access the adversaries have to the AI. Some of the technologies are very readily available and usable, and how they will use it against us. So the threat can be very kind of, I would say, AI dictated and unknown. It may come up with a threat that we cannot deal with all our planning that we've done against it. So how do we meet that uncertain threat that AI might come up? I just talked about novel ways of doing tactics. There will be novel ways of trying to kind of attack us using AI, I believe, that we cannot meet. So that, I think, is probably the most dangerous. So understanding those AI threats are probably more important than trying to look at what we can do with AI.
Miguel?
Yes, from my perspective, and I agree with you, is basically removing from the equation the man on the loop too early. For education purposes, if you trust blindly on what the AI is stating, and then you will have a problem for sure. That's the reason why on education, you should keep in always the man on the loop, and in this case, should be an instructor that with the help of the AI can influence on how the AI is basically not doing anything wrong, just because the data might state that. So that's what they call the hallucination or the bias. So basically for me, it's just removing the man on the loop too early.
Tim, I might sort of go to you and just see whether you're able to, you're very free to talk about what you see from the customers that you work with around AI.
I think actually it's the need for training in defence in AI. So there is an intelligent customer there on one side, but those guys can actually use the AI when they have it. And I suppose it's make sure training keeps step with the technology to make sure that defence can use AI to its advantage.
Yeah, and without speaking for defence, I would say skills is the thing I would observe. But Commodore Rachel Singleton, who runs the Defence AI Centre, she has a line of effort around skills. So I know this is work that we are involved in and thinking about. Any more questions from the?
I do have one on the virtual chat.
Abby?
It's a DSET regular and Anthony Hadley, and there's quite there's quite a bit of context. So please bear with.
Let's dive in.
Dive in. The limitations of discrete computing obviously mean software can't actually think. AI can't produce new ideas, just combine and regurgitate existing ones. Companies like OpenAI and xAI pretend otherwise and draw attention to risks of AGI in an effort to escape accountability, shifting perceived responsibility for misuse onto the software itself. Are we in danger of making the same mistake, seeing AI as something more than extremely complex but dumb data processing, and thereby sleepwalking into an ethical quagmire by offloading responsibility when something goes wrong?
Thanks, Abby. So I don't know if we've got anybody who wants to take a first stab at that. Bharat?
I think to assume that AI is kind of just dumb data base or a dumb kind of system, I think that's dangerous. I believe we have algorithms and new technologies that go into kind of the learning phase of AI. It kind of learns, and so it is becoming intelligent. I don't think it can think for itself at the moment, but day will come when it will start increasing its knowledge, and also it pulls that knowledge from not just one person but many persons, and the wider World Wide Web as well. So I think you've got to be very careful that it is no longer an unintelligent or a kind of a analysis of information and regurgitating that to us. I think it is becoming intelligent in the way that it kind of does its think, well, not thinking, but it does this kind of assimilation of data. So I would be quite against just assuming that we think it's more than. There is a hype. I do believe there is a hype. That's why we looked at it and looked at the next decade. What is coming in the next decade? So I think, yeah, we have looked at the hype and we have analyzed that hype, and we've taken some very good kind of roadmap steps towards what is more likely to happen. But I would be kind of against saying that it is not becoming, inverted commas, intelligent.
Thanks, Bharat. Tim.
I think from using AI, I think it's about controls you put in place. So initially you have to set the scope for the AI. We've spoken about use of the internet. Bharat has mentioned that now. On some projects we can't do that. So we are controlling the AI to a certain extent of when we're delivering it, but also we are keeping the human in the loop, as we've already mentioned, in the fact that we're using the tool as the AI to free up that talent, that skill set, to then take the analysis the AI has done to the next level. So I think it's a way of sort of keeping the control on the front end as well as the back end. So I think it's always keeping that human in place.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. And of course, there's a whole stack here, isn't there, of permissions and authorities and legislation and what's ethical, what's legal, and how do we set those boundaries within sort of international rules-based kind of context. And I sense that is where NATO has certainly founded itself and all of its members. Miguel, anything to add?
No, not really. They did it clearly. And I want to stress again that keeping the man on the loop right now, it's essential. If you remove it, then our foundations may drop, and therefore we can get into a bigger problem.
Yeah, and don't forget the women. That's me too. So, I mean, what's really interesting, and I smile, Riley, and that was hopefully a gentle poke, but is my team will always tell me at work that I'm one of these horrible creative people that comes up with loads of stupid ideas, and they have to then work through it. But you know what? There's something quite satisfied about in knowing that we will still need creativity out there. And whilst AI is an extremely powerful technology, I still think that we're seeing some of the best ideas for improvements and efficiencies and concepts coming out of very bright people, or people at the very heart of military operations. So young soldiers, sailors and aviators that come up with some incredible different ways of thinking about the problems. And it goes back to your point, Tim, around what is the problem? What are we trying to solve? And how do we then translate that into a requirement? And there's some brilliant researchers out there looking at what's possible with the technology, but you're right, honing in on understanding what those problems are as you're doing that discovery, and then working out how do you convert that into a requirement for technology to solve is often really critical to good use of it. Any other questions in the room? No, I recognise we've also been competing with the Land Systems Test and Reference Centre presentation next door with CTTP dropping tomorrow. I think we've been slightly outdone, I think, maybe by questions and audience. But I would just like to, on your behalf, thank our incredible speakers who've come today to talk about what they've been up to and their challenges around AI and cyber. And we're very grateful for your questions. So if you could join me in giving them all a round of applause, final round of applause. Thank you.